Hello, and welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Welcome, everyone. Travel writer and author Linda Ballou is back on Big Blend Radio today to share part 2 of her adventures down under with the Overseas Adventure Travel Company. And they took her from Melbourne to Sydney. She went through the Great Barrier Reef, the Daintree Forest. It's a rainforest, just world famous. And she went to Tasmania, all kinds of national parks. So very excited to hear about her adventures. We did air part 1, and you can see that on nationalparktraveling.com. Just type in Linda Ballou. She is one of our experts here on Big Blend Radio and Big Blend Radio and TV magazine and National Park Traveling, our Parks and Travel magazine, which is there. And also she's an author of a number of books, and the latest one is Lost Angel in Paradise, Outdoor Days from L.A. to the Lost Coast of California. And so if you're going to California, this gives you 32 day trips to enjoy along the coast. So check that out. You can go to our website, lostangeladventures.com. And also go to lindaballouauthor.com. And also on nationalparktraveling.com, she has her article about her 9 wonders from down under. And you can read that now and also in the early summer issue of Parks and Travel magazine. So, Linda, welcome back. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm really good. It's gorgeous here.
You're in LA today, right?
Yeah,
beautiful
they
time.
told us it was going to rain. They told us it was going to rain all week, and here it is. It's absolutely stunning with these fluffy white clouds. It's beautiful.
Awesome. Well, you are, the angel, the lost angel in L.A. So that I
right.
love that part of it. Yeah, today, Nancy and I are in 29 Palms Gateway to Joshua Tree National Park, and we've actually had rain out here, so we're saying, okay, come on, wildflowers, because we still have that little, time frame. So hoping for that. But being out in the desert, kind of, going through your photos and reading your article and from our last conversation about your adventures in Australia, it's kind of interesting because you're in California, you've got the ocean, but then you go to the Great Barrier Reef. Did you find any similarities between California and Australia? And then on the flip side, did you see anything, completely different, even though you think desert and coast?
Well, Australia is filled with diversity and microclimates, and so I think the greatest similarity for me was the Great Ocean Road on the Melbourne side. On the south side, reminded me very much of our Big Sur and Central Coast drives with a very, very, very dramatic coastline. So that would be the most like California and. But the Daintree Forest and North Queensland is totally jungle, and it's extremely humid. Now, I was there in summer, and they do have a dry season, which is probably the better time to be there. But the trouble is when you have an overview trip like I had going to all these different places, you can't be at the right time of year for all of them. You know what I'm saying? It was perfect time to be in Melbourne, a wonderful time to be in Sydney, but North Queensland has a wet season and a dry season, and we were just on the edge of the wet season, so we were just really lucky that we weren't, in a downpour. We went to the Daintree Forest, which is a 180-million-year-old forest. It's the oldest forest on the planet, and it's a heritage site, a World Heritage Site. And just unique trees and foliage and animals, totally unique and endemic to that place. So we went to this natural heritage forest, but we were on private land. This couple has lived there for 23 years. In fact, they were married there in this jungle. And raised their...
That's awesome. They're in the jungle.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were out there. Their children, it was like 3.5 hours a day that their children were on buses going to the nearest town for school. They didn't homeschool them. They did send them to a small town. And actually, I guess their kids were really honor students. And anyway, I won't go too far on that side. But they did a very good job raising these children. And they were naturalists. In fact, this particular segment, it's on the Copper Creek is what it is, and it's going to be in David Attenborough's next documentary that's coming out hopefully soon. Yeah, he came there because they are preserving the forest, this couple that's lived there, and they're very much, conservationists, and they are raising these cassowary birds, which is a giant bird.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
With a brilliant blue neck, very striking, and a very big beak. I mean, they're like ostrich, as big as ostriches, So the cassowary bird has to stay alive to propagate the forest because it eats the fruits of the trees and then it, deposits them in the forest and for the forest to regenerate and propagate. So without the cassowary bird, the forest will die. And so they've been, they are a huge conservation effort there to save the cassowary birds from the feral pigs.
Oh, wow.
Which are the menace. Yeah, it's a horrible situation. There's like 60,000 feral pigs, and they're not allowed to shoot them unless they come onto their private property. And so they eat the eggs of the cassowary birds and other things too. I mean, pigs will eat anything, right?
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. So that's very similar to what happened in Pinnacles National Park in Central California. They had wild hogs, and they had to balance that out because they had bird species, and people shot the hogs, especially with lead ammunition. Then that would actually kill the California condors that they were helping and still are.
Right. Well,
so it's
we've
really
got the
interesting.
Same problem in Hawaii with feral pigs eating, birds' eggs, and they'll eat anything. Right? Yeah. But in Hawaii, they don't want to lose them because, like on Molokai, they like to hunt them and they like to eat them. So it's part of their culture now to have the wild pigs. But here in Australia, in the Daintree Forest, they're just a menace. And this is just a little tiny bit of this 180 million forest left, a little bit here and in New Guinea apparently. And so when that goes, it'll all be gone. But at any rate, it was a wonderful day. We took a nature stroll with the wife, and she pointed out all these insects and creatures that are totally, you couldn't see them unless she pointed them out because they're camouflaged to survive. And most of the animals there are nocturnal, so you don't see them. There's a tree kangaroo and a possum and some other critters, but you don't see them. But we did see the cassowary birds. There were I think there were like 4 cassowary birds that we saw on our time there.
The photo that you sent us, the one with the horn thing on his head.
Right.
That's the
guy.
It's pretty.
That's the guy.
Well, I was maybe they're beautiful. I won't say pretty for the guy, but the rain tree forest I'm really fascinated about. I've always wanted to go. A friend of ours, Robin Easton, lived in the forest and wrote a book, Naked in Eden. And you'd love, I know you love really good nature writing and travel writing, and that I know you'd love it because she lived out there and she ended up becoming, believe this, a barefoot hiker in the Daintree rainforest. Now,
oh, really? Well, I definitely will read it.
Yeah, I mean, would you barefoot hike in half of these kinds of places?
Absolutely not. In fact, that's really a bad idea. You should be wearing long pants and hiking shoes. Guess what? They have 5 venomous snakes in Australia. They have 5 snakes, and they are all very venomous. And, you can definitely run into a snake and a jungle walk in the Daintree Forest, anywhere in North Queensland. So, I mean, they're all over Australia.
She lived in it, and it was a different kind of lifestyle. And you're absolutely right. Please, people, do not do things like, I know people that come out to the desert and don't bring water and wear their flip-flops and start going on a desert hike here in the Southwest, and they get in trouble. So you're really right. Like, don't try this at home.
I think Right, this guy Doug Peacock, he lived with the grizzlies in Montana, and he lived in proximity with them, not touching them, but around them, and with them for like, I don't know, a year or so. He was a war vet, and this was his way of pulling himself together, was connecting with nature. And it's his book is a fascinating read, but wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
So anyway, Daintree Forest is rainy. We went to this wonderful jungle lodge in the forest where we were served this lunch where this man had every kind of fruit that's in the forest and some that weren't. And, he served that little samples of each fruit and gave us the history of all the fruits with barramundi fish for our entree, and it was just absolutely delicious and wonderful. And then we had, and it was like an outdoor setting underneath a tin roof, and then it started raining, a tropical rain, very pattering on the roof, and it was just wonderful. I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, I love the tropical rain. That is magical to have that little bit of respite. But so this is all local food, so everything is it's a little bit more than farm to table then.
Right. Well, there were some of the samples of the fruit, fruits that I've never eaten, and they weren't necessarily all indigenous to that place. This man had raised fruits and flowers. Had a garden, and we had these blooms, all beautiful blooms, and ferns, and all these things were around, in our eating area, and it was just delightful. It was really a nice experience, and that was in the Daintree Forest.
Wow.
So that was our big day there, and then the Great Barrier Reef, right? That's the other thing that's in this region is. So you go north for Daintree, and then you go to Cairn, the city, which is the main city in North Queensland, where you fly in, and that's where the boats are docked. And it's big business, snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef. We were on a big ship. I thought we were going to be like on a catamaran, about a third of the size of the boat that we were on. But in the boat we had 180 passengers. So you can imagine, I was wondering how are they going to get everybody in snorkels and fins and masks. But it was like military precision, the way they handled it. And we had to don Lycra stinger suits, they're called. Because, you had to have this full-body suit. The jellyfish, the stinger jellies, can kill you, okay?
Right.
And they can. They don't usually, but they can. And January is the season that they come in, but they stay in close to the shore, we were told. So we couldn't swim in the ocean, by our hotel. But the reef where you snorkel is 30 miles out. So you go, on this ship out 30 miles and to your first snorkel stop. And, we all clambered into the water. My only regret is that I didn't pay the extra bucks to go out with the naturalist guide who was on the boat, because he would have given me a private tour. So I was out there with all these other, getting a fin in the face every once in a while, because we were all.
But you saw moray eels, and that's the thing. I used to snorkel in Kenya and Mombasa, and it's warm water. When I saw your photos of the Great Barrier Reef, it was like, oh, that turquoise, that blue, that just looks magical. And when you're out there, you start to kind of it's like fantasy land, and then you forget the moray eel is like seeing the snake, man. It's like
right. I don't really want to share the ocean with a moray eel, and it was slithering on the bottom of the ocean floor, so it was quite a ways from me. I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 feet down, but it slithered into the coral head, and then another one popped up, and I went, "Oh my God,
there's always
I'm getting out of here.
like snakes, but
I'm
there's
getting
always
out of
like
here."
snakes. But you know what? They do move away from you, so there is that healthy respect of, okay, that's your little rocky area. Bye. I'm moving on. But the Great Barrier Reef, I think you going to Tasmania, going to the Daintree Rainforest, the Great Barrier Reef, and I think with David Attenborough going to the Daintree Rainforest as well, like what you're talking about. These are really iconic places to visit, and at the same time understand that they're going to change with what's going on with climate change. There's so much happening with the reef. So you going there, when if you go back again, it's going to already have changed, probably.
Well, that's right. It is. They said that it's been getting hotter for the last 4 years, each year hotter and hotter. And the water was quite warm. It was very comfortable, about 75 or 80, and all of that was good. And it was beautiful. And I really feel privileged to have had the opportunity because, my mission is to get to as many beautiful places as I can before they're gone.
Yeah. Right.
And the Great Barrier Reef, even though it's 125 miles long, is definitely in jeopardy. The warming water is causing acidification, and it bleaches the corals. And then all of the creatures that are, surviving in the coral heads, the little fishes, they hang out in the coral heads so that the big fishes don't eat them. It's all a balancing act that's being, quickly undermined by global warming. But the good news was when I was there, our guide was, quote unquote, a greenie, and she was upset because there was a mine that was wanted to drill, and they were going to be, breaking through like a mile-wide stretch through the reef to do what they wanted to do. But just recently, I saw that it wasn't economically feasible for them, and had nothing to do with them caring about, the consequences of their mine, but they dropped it. And so that didn't happen. But there's everywhere, and the other thing that's going on in Australia, and I won't go into too much of the negative stuff, is the fracking, which is they have the largest artesian basin there. The underwater cable, and the fracking jeopardizes that.
Oh God, that's. Okay, I have to bite my tongue right now because I have things to say about it.
Yeah, I know. We won't go on too much.
I know,
about
but it's like,
it.
dude, you can't mess with the water, and it's Australia has had years. Having lived in South Africa, South Africa and Australia is so close and connected, and even a lot of musicians that I know are from Australia are protest musicians of what was going on because of mining and fracking and now. But especially when I was growing up, it was like, what are the miners doing to this area? Yet it's also part of its history and its landscape. And that from your background in Alaska, there's like, okay, we have to balance things out. We can't say, okay, all miners are bad because you wouldn't even have a cell phone right now if it wasn't for miners, right?
No, of course not.
So there's that
people
balance
have to have jobs. I understand that, but there are we have to have other clean jobs for people.
Yeah, clean energy.
There have to be alternative jobs.
Yeah.
So in Australia, particularly in the Melbourne area, they had a gold rush like we had in California. Yeah. And in fact, that Melbourne was the richest city in Australia because of the gold rush. And a lot of our California miners went over there after ours busted, after they had, pretty much ended it here in San Francisco and so on. And so they have kind of a similar history, with the mining. And there's a lot of natural, minerals and so on in Australia. So then...
Oh, I was going to say, I wanted to touch on Tasmania. I want to go back to Sydney and Melbourne, but I wanted to touch on Tasmania because Tasmania is something that you rarely hear about people going there that often. I mean, it's just one of those, people go to Australia, they go to Melbourne, Sydney, and I do want to close with that. But Tasmania is one of those, like, you all hope, like, hey, the Tasmania devil. Remember, we chatted about that before on the show with you, but that has got to be really epic. And when you went to Tasmania, was this still with the Overseas Adventure Company? With them? Okay,
no,
this was a side trip.
I did a solo thing over there, and Tasmania is 150 miles south of the mainland, and so you fly there. But it's an island state, and I underestimated how big the island state was. Frankly, I mean, there's really a lot there to explore. And I rented a car, and that was excitement in itself, because of course I'm driving in my mind on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm, you know, from the airport, when first landing, I have to drive to Hobart, which is the biggest city in Tasmania. And so there was traffic, much more traffic than I anticipated. I found myself going over this enormous bridge spanning this great river. There's so much water there. You have these peninsulas that, you know, jut out into water, into the Tasman Sea. And they have these long bridges crossing huge estuaries and things, you know, so it's really very scenic. And there's only 500,000 people on Tasmania, and they live mostly in Hobart and another town called Launceston. And you can stay in Hobart and really have a wonderful time in Tasmania, because there's a lot of things that are very close to Hobart. But I wanted to see the whole place in 1 week, which was really quite a bit. But I did go to the Tasman Peninsula, where there's a whole system of trails along these very dramatic ocean cliffs that have been eroded from the waves and the wind, and you have these arches. And I had a couple of really nice, like 1 to 2 mile hikes, you know, not huge hikes, because I was trying to get a lot done in one day. But they have like the Three Capes hike in that region is world famous, and it's you know, like 30 miles and takes several nights, and you stay at lodges on the way. So what Tasmania is right now is like the hottest spot for adventure enthusiasts. National Geographic Traveler calls it their top pick for 2020. And you know, for people who like to be outdoors. I mean, if you want a city, stay in Sydney. But if you love the outdoors and natural wonders and phenomenal weather and beautiful clear skies and you know, just Tasmania is a really great place to be. So they also have Port Arthur there, which I didn't go to. It's the convict, where the original convict colony was. You know that all
like
of
Botany
Australia
Bay?
was. Yes, exactly. So you know Australia was settled by the convicts. It was, you know, in England the prisons were overcrowded because they were arresting people for stealing a loaf of bread, you know, and having very severe punishments for people, and they ran out of prison space, right? So to solve their overcrowded prison problem, they decided to send them all to Australia. Wow. So Port Arthur is a town that was built by the convicts, and it's actually a very scenic area, and you can take boats into the bay there, and you can, you know, it's very interesting. I would have liked to have done that, but I wanted to go to Cradle Mountain, which is a wonderful national park there. I think 25% of the land is national park and preserved. So
that's my kind of place for sure.
Right, yes. So I wanted to go to Cradle Mountain. It's very famous for what's called the Overland Track, which is a week-long track through this alpine area. So now you're going up, the tallest mountain there is like 5,600 feet, I think. And it does snow there, and it's quite moody, the weather. And I was disappointed that when I got there, it was raining, a cold rain, very blustery and wet. And I wanted to hike what's called the Dove Lake Circuit, which was about a 4-mile loop, but I couldn't. I started out, but I mean I couldn't see the mountains. It was raining really hard, so they have a shuttle system like our parks. So I hopped back on the shuttle and I went back to a forested region where it was sheltered by the trees, and I did the Enchanted Wood Walk, which was delightful, and went to this waterfall, and really had a very nice time. And then of course it cleared. Just as I was about ready to leave, the sun comes out.
Yeah, I know, that's
okay.
what happened. But hey, listen,
okay.
you went to Wineglass Bay. That's my thing. I want to go to Wineglass Bay. Did you have wine at Wineglass Bay? No.
Yeah, I did, but it was a ways to get there. So that afternoon I left about 2 because I needed to drive to my room, my next stop.
Okay.
And anyway, as I left, then the sun came out. It was absolutely glorious.
Oh.
I mean, really stunning. And it's like the English countryside. Remember, these people were English. And so they've recreated a little England down there, a little English countryside. I don't know if you've ever driven in the countryside of England, but it's patchwork quilt. Yeah, okay, a patchwork quilt of greens, different colors of green, very tidy and neat. Only this is framed in tall mountains. So it's really a nice dichotomy. And I stopped in one of the little towns, and it's so English, I couldn't believe it. Very old-fashioned little hotel where I stopped to eat, and I had a toasty and tea, and they serve it, very formally like they do in the country in England. It was very sweet. And I did a Wind in the Willows walk there. They had created, a lovely river walk in this little town. So there was a lot of nice little things to discover. But I had to get to the East Coast, which is where Freixenet Park is, which is another beautiful, beautiful, beautiful national park that they have. So that involved quite a bit of driving through gorgeous country. It was all beautiful, but as I say, I didn't realize the distances because, people would say 2 hours. Well, it was 2 hours if you were an Australian and that you drive like 80 or 90 miles an hour on these country roads. But I didn't.
but this is interesting, because you think Tasmania is this teeny little island, and you're like, hello, no, it's not. And I think a lot of us also think Tasmania is another country. You know what I mean? Connected to Australia. We don't realize it's like Hawaii, like a state of it, right? So there's that whole different part of it. But this is, it's interesting when you think of it, but you also say that you really wish you stayed in Hobart. In your article, and everyone, again, you can go to nationalparktraveling.com to read Linda's article and see her photos on this. Just type in Australia, you'll find it. But Hobart, you said you wish you'd stayed there longer.
Either I wished I had stayed in Hobart and explored around there more and did just the East Coast and skipped Cradle Mountain, or I wished I'd had another week.
Oh, I think you know what I'm saying? For the other week. I know you on this. You would have rather stayed a week. I know. Come on, not go back to work. Come on.
I would have rather stayed another week. That's right. But the East Coast now the East Coast really does kind of reminded me more of Hawaii than California because you had these beautiful long stretches of powder white sand and turquoise water, and it was warmer there. And, it was beautiful, lovely. I didn't swim there because there were no lifeguards, and the currents are strong, and I went, no, I can't do it, because there was no one on the beach. Swimming alone, strong currents, in a foreign land, I went, no. But it was so tempting, and you don't have the jellies and the saltwater crocs and the other stuff that you have up in North Queensland, which really makes it impossible for you to swim in the ocean there. It was very, very tempting. And I stayed at a sweet little town where my room was so cute and quaint, and it was right by this blowhole, which was I won't say touristy place because there was hardly anybody there, but it was a lovely little spot, and then I could walk they had a rock walk that was on the granite rocks with the orange lichen that you maybe have seen pictures of. The rocks there are cinnamon colored. And so anyway, there was like little arrows on the rocks taking you down the coast, and it was really a fun little romp. And then it took me to a marina where I had seafood bouillabaisse, it was just a nice day. It was really sweet. That's what I'm saying. It's beautiful, and you run into cute little places, and people are so nice and generous and extending there. It was all over Australia, I would say that. Everyone was super nice.
When I
were
look at your photos, too,
asking for help.
They're so quaint. Some of the places, like, just so floral, like you were saying earlier, but you also have this, I think it was in the Botanic Garden, like this gazebo that looked like a macaroon. Like, it's so Victorian.
Oh, well, that was it. That was in a place called the Cataract Gorge in Launceston. It was a famous place. That was where the bandstand was in this park in the 1800s. And they have a chair there, that goes across the gorge, and they have trails going up the gorge. And I had friends in Launceston who took me there, and we had a lovely meal there. So
nice.
It was pretty delightful. That was the other thing. I was lucky I had friends there. I truly wished I had another week, and then I didn't have to rush through some of it. So it was really,
it's hard because you think Australia is, like you said, Australia is the size of our country, the size of America. How do you do it all? You go to Australia, it's like, how do you pack it all in? And
you can't.
How do you, and then do you, like, balance it out, slow it down, So Sydney and Melbourne, two places. Sydney, I know is famous for New Year's Eve with the fireworks and all, and the gardens and beautiful. But it seems like Sydney and Melbourne both have these botanic gardens. They seem to really cherish their gardens there.
That's right. They all do. All the towns do. Remember, these people are English, and they love gardens. And they absolutely have them in every city, and that's really a nice touch. Melbourne is more green, but same thing in Tasmania. I stumbled into this, it's called Ballou Garden, and they served me a seafood meal there that was so delightful in the middle of this gorgeous garden. It was just a treat. And I had just pulled off the highway because I was hungry. And I saw the sign that said garden and food. That's all that it takes from me, right? So anyway, it was really quite a special little stop. And that's what I loved about Tasmania, okay? As I say, they're the country lanes, not a lot of traffic. I had the roads to myself pretty much. And it was all good. And as far as Sydney goes, it's a maritime culture, and everything is centered around the Sydney Harbor, which is one of the most beautiful harbors in the world, absolutely. And the water's warm, the sky is blue, and it's you hear the ferries are buzzing in and out, and sailboats are cruising, and you have this sense of San Francisco only with great weather, better weather, warmer water. So I really liked Sydney, and that was where I did swim. I took a ferry across the harbor. I had a free day. This company that I travel with, Overseas Adventure Travel, they're very good about giving you free time, and I need that, So I had my free day in Sydney, and I got on the fast ferry and went to Manly, which is a smaller community than Sydney, much smaller and very charming. And you just take a short stroll over through the trendy shops, and you get to the ocean. So now you've got, waves, beautiful waves, the energy of the sea, sandy beach. I got to go swimming, right? And so I did, and it was lovely. It was just absolutely lovely, and it was perfect because I had been traveling for 16 days, and you get a little tired. Your body gets a little
crusty. Yeah, you need to have that, like, okay, refreshment time. I need my downtime. I love that that they do that, the Overseas Adventure Travel Company, because I think that you need to have that break. You need to get away, also discover things on your own. You need to have that, I want to go have my own thing, but it's really nice to fall back in and not have to worry about everything and know someone else has done the planning and we're going to go here and there. One thing I liked, Melbourne, you said, had a really good, public transport system, and it seems like Sydney as well, that they're really embracing the double-decker buses, the ferries, and all of that, and trams, trolleys, all of it.
Right, and the hop-on, hop-off double-decker bus was so much fun. The rest of the people went to the Opera House for a performance. I had been to the Opera House for a tour that morning, and I didn't want to do that. So I got on the hop-on, hop-off bus, which takes you all around the city, and you could sit on the top, and it had an audio component telling you where you were. And so it was a warm, beautiful evening, and, you don't have to think about a thing, and you're flying around all these different neighborhoods. And you can hop off at, say, Darling Harbor, which is a really trendy, high-end spot for dinner if you want, or you can hop off at Bondi Beach, which is where all the hip and cool kids go, and all the surfers
Music
swim.
Festival City.
Yeah, all of it. That's where the action is, right? Or you can stop off at these wonderful museums or art galleries, and I stopped off at the Royal Botanical Garden, which was fabulous. I had actually done that in the morning for a couple of hours. I didn't hop off the bus for that. I walked to that from the Opera House. It's on the water. It was so beautiful, just gorgeous.
Oh, sounds like a magical, magical journey. So, the question is, would you go back? I already know the answer, right?
Absolutely, I would, even though it's got a 16-hour flight. But I wouldn't do it unless I had a month, honestly. I miss the Blue Mountains. I wanted to go to the Blue Mountains, but when I took the car back in Hobart, I was done. You know what I'm saying? You reach a point where, okay, I'm done. I'm traveled. I'm ready to go home. And so I didn't go to the Blue Mountains, which was a place that I wanted to go to, which is very famous. It's you take a train out of Sydney, a 2-hour, very scenic train ride up to the top of the mountain, and then you have a cable car that takes you down inside this gorge, and you have guides who take you on walks there. And I really wanted to do that, but it actually started raining, and remember after the fires there were floods.
Yeah, the big rain always happens.
Yeah, the big rains were coming, and just as I was going into the international airport to leave, it started really pouring. And I went, oh my God! I'm so glad I didn't try to go to the Blue Mountains.
Well, I think what's interesting about when you do these big long treks is, and I think that's kind of where Nancy and I with our tour, people expect, oh, you're going to do a park a day, and I'm like, no, that doesn't work that way. Sometimes we're in a lot of parks, and then there's we need to download personally, and just in all the footage and do business stuff too. You need to kind of have that break, and I think when you go over to Australia, that maybe it's get an Airbnb and have time where you just kind of live there for a little bit. You know what I mean? When you do that kind
of
big trek.
When I was in Tasmania, by the way, I did do Airbnb, and they were all very, very nice, very clean, very economical. I think all of them were under $100 a night.
Wow.
And my one in Binochet, which was a very sweet little coastal town, she even had cream for my coffee, and cereal for me in the fridge. She made it so I didn't have to go out to do anything, and that was really nice. So I had a very relaxing time. And then one of them was a 2-bedroom house. So I went, my God, I don't need all of this. And I had Netflix, I was like,
oh wow. She's like, okay.
Yeah, this is very cool. I'm staying here I would have rented that house for a month. Yeah, it's true. Actually, I'm getting to. Yeah, I'm getting to the point, Lisa, where I want to just rent for a month. I'd like to rent for a month in Santa Fe, a month in Colorado. You know what I mean? Because it's nice.
Yeah, Santa Fe. When you say Santa Fe, Nancy and I did Santa Fe in July. And I'm going to tell you, we were there for 4 nights, and there's no way we're anywhere close to scratching the surface, because how do you can't, doing things real fast, you don't really get the whole cultural, you gotta breathe it in and then have time to actually understand what, you can hear it, but then you have to absorb it. And I think you do need that kind of thing. I really do. I agree with you. A house in Santa Fe for a month. I'm with you.
And I bet you could rent something for not too much, and also Santa Fe is the gateway to Monument Valley. The Navajo Nation and Chaco cultural sites there. And Canyon de Chile and ancestral pueblos, and I'm very interested in that stuff. So I would like to spend time there. I think you had one on Bandelier. I think you had
we went to
story
Bandelier
on Bandelier.
Yeah,
Bandelier, I want to go there.
Yeah, Bandelier. Well, what was interesting, we went and we didn't get to spend as much time, obviously, with the 4 days. We went early in the morning, and if you're in the summer, if you don't get there before 9, you need to take a shuttle bus in. And I love that they're doing the shuttle buses. It's better for the environment and all that good stuff. So we went in. We hiked the whole thing around the main trail, I should say, and it was this magical spiritual thing. But on the other side is the San Ildefonso. If I get it wrong, excuse me. I know Elma Torres is going to get on me for saying this wrong, but it's San Ildefonso Pueblo there. Is the other part of Bandelier National Monument, and you can go on these Pueblo tours that they will take you on the other side, and I want to do that side because going into Santa Fe, and really you've got to read some things up before you go there and start to understand the Pueblo culture. And luckily, we've done a lot of interviews on that area, Chaco Canyon, Chaco Cultural National Historical Park. You want to put that, and if you do that, you need to do Aztec, because Aztec is where the ancient Puebloans lived, and then Chaco is their ceremonial side, and it is magical, and you're going to leave there with a million questions that none of us will ever be able to answer until we come back, or if we do or don't, whatever we all believe in. But that area it's magical, and I don't think you can spend enough time. But I will say this, the National Parks Arts Foundation, what was interesting is going to Chaco and to Aztec ruins. We interview every first Friday. You hear interviews with artists in residence. And by the way, Linda, this is why I'm bringing it up, because writers are part of it. You apply to be an artist in residence, and you stay in the park for a full month, and to write, to paint. I'm going
to look into that. I'm going to look into that, seriously. So the other thing, though, you were running in terms of Australia, what I didn't see when I was in North Queensland, there's a train ride that goes up to Corunda, which is an Aboriginal village, like a marketplace thing. It's touristy, but you know, they have the Aboriginal dancing, and I didn't get to see that. And then they have a sky train that takes you back down. So that is a wonderful day that you can't do it all in 17 days. But I would definitely go back there and do that. I would love to go to the Whitsunday Islands, which are spectacular islands off the Queen Gold Coast. I didn't get to see any of the Gold Coast, which is very famous and where many people actually live. Some of these the Outback, very few people live there. But also on the Great Ocean Road, the way to do it is to do it for 3 nights, and you can hike the road, and they have guides that will take you hiking on the Great Ocean, which I would have loved to do, but I only had 1 day, so I mean that's just it. In an overview trip,
you got
exactly.
Get what you can and plan for the next adventure.
Yeah, I absolutely would go back. Absolutely, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful place to explore.
I want to give everyone the website for the travel company that you're with, the Overseas Adventure Travel Company. It's like oats, like oatmeal. It's OATtravel.com. Also, you'll see the link up on Linda's article. Just type in Australia on nationalparktraveling.com. You'll see it there. And also her article's featured in the early spring issue of Parks and Travel magazine. And I encourage you to keep up with Linda and her travels. Go to her website, and from there, follow her on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all those places. She's always posting great things. Go to her website, lostangeladventures.com, and that's also where you'll learn more about her book, Lost Angel in Paradise, Outdoor Days from L.A. to the Lost Coast of California. And also go to lindaballou.author.com, because she's also a wonderful fiction writer as well. So you want to keep up. Even though she writes fiction, it's got all these strains of real history. So if you're into historical fiction, I encourage you to go to her website, lindaballou.author.com. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Linda. We've got music for you now. I have to.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I always love our talks.
Oh,
okay.
We do too. And today's song for you, we have to play. I know the last time you were on, we played Oasis from the Walkabout Band, and now I have to. They'll kill me. They'll drag me through the water because they are based in New York City and Sydney. So I'm going to play On the Bay. And so here it is, On the Bay by the Walkabout Band. And they'll be back on the show real soon because they've got a new album coming out. This is from their first album, self-titled Walkabout Band. So you keep up with them at walkaboutband.com. But here it is, On the Bay, which totally goes with your experience. So thanks so much, Linda. Thank you, everyone. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thanks, Linda.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
To imagine, sun is shining bright today, wind is gently whispering of the good times. I got breakfast on